I'm April Davila for Sit Right Here, and this is First Page Fridays, where we look at your first page the way a reader or an agent might upon picking up your book. I am a traditionally published novelist, a mindset coach. I help aspiring authors write more and suffer less. And today we're going to look at somebody's first page. Thank you to whoever sent in the page. We keep it all anonymous. If you would like to send in your first page, there's a link below in the show notes. You can send that in and we'll put you in the queue. And if you're working on a novel and you would like this kind of attention on your entire manuscript, reach out. Let's talk. This is what I do. All right, let's get started. So I have not read this yet. We're reading it together for the first time. So I'll read it straight through and then we'll come back up to the top and we'll start talking about how we can tighten up the page. So chapter 1, The Comet Janelle, 1986. There's an emoji. I've never seen an emoji in fiction before. Okay, the year I turned 7, Halley's Comet passed by the Earth on its orbit through our solar system. A tiny spacecraft named Giotto had been sent to meet this comet to take pictures and sample the dust and ice swirling around it. My mom seemed permanently attached to her headsets, waiting for details about what scientists found in the pictures. Those details turned out to be pretty amazing, like the first ever picture of the very core of the comet itself. But Giotto never detected the most interesting detail of all, an ancient ship with tattered tails lodged deep in one of Halley's craters, harboring a young girl, a stowaway from long ago. Maybe it was well hidden. Maybe it was not meant to be discovered. Maybe it exists only in a tale whispered down through the generations as they await the appearance of Halley's Comet each time it passes by. "Oh, give it a rest, Jezebel," Dad teased Mom as he smiled, his sideways smile at me. "Susanna will get you the data as soon as it's crystal clear." Mom had met Susanna in college during her semester abroad in Ireland. Susanna was running the experiments on the dust around Halley's Comet. They had always called it a dirty snowball. Giotto discovered that it was in fact more like a snowy dirt ball with a dark rocky core shaped a little bit like a peanut. But for me, it was just a smudge in the sky. Okay. All right, so our system, when you send in your pages, takes out the return. So I'm going to assume that this was, kind of just an intro statement here, setting the scene. The Comet Janelle, 1986. I would not use emojis in your fiction, but I'll leave that for you. Just why not? What it does is that it raises the question of AI. Like, did AI write this? This doesn't sound like AI writing, so I'm just going to delete it because you don't want people questioning that in your writing. The year I turned 7, Halley's Comet passed by the Earth on its orbit through our solar system. Okay, so this is great. We're getting right off the bat that we're in a first-person narrative, that our narrator is 7, and that we're in 1986. We already know that. Halley's Comet Janelle. So this is a little bit of I'm not sure why Comet Janelle, but that's okay. It's 1986. Halley's Comet has passed by the Earth on its orbit through our solar system. A tiny spacecraft, I might even put a return there. A tiny spacecraft named Giotto had been sent to meet this comet to take pictures and sample the dust and ice swirling around it. My mom seemed permanently attached to her headsets, waiting for details. Okay, so particularly in a first page, it's best to draw people into a scene, right? Now sometimes there are always exceptions. It's art. Fiction is art. There are no rules. There are guidelines. So I really like the setting of this, right? It's a galaxy-wide setting for this story. A tiny spacecraft named Giotto had been sent to meet this comet to take pictures and sample the dust and ice swirling around it. Now, this is where it starts to get generalized. My mom seemed permanently attached to her headsets. And I mean, I am not that far off from this character's age. And headsets to me, like, I don't know, in the 80s, a headset was like something that like a professional operator would wear. Maybe headphones if you had a Walkman, and Walkmans did do radio. But to me, this is a little ambiguous. I'm not sure what it means that mom seemed permanently attached to her headsets, waiting for details about what scientists. So what I would recommend here is put us in scene. Like have the character be like, Mom pulls off her headset. Any news yet? You know, that sort of thing. Like put us in a scene, a specific place and a specific time with a specific number of people. That's a scene. This is a generalization. And the details turned out to be pretty amazing. Again, this is pretty general, and we're still talking about outside of our actual even world, let alone a scene where this character might be. But Giotto never detected the most interesting detail of all. Okay, so this is where I actually like this, right? The most important detail of all. An ancient ship with tattered sails lodged deep in one of Halley's craters, harboring a young girl, a stowaway from long ago. Maybe it was well hidden. Maybe it was not meant to be discovered. Maybe it exists only in a tale whispered down through I'm going to say through generations, not the generations. As they awaited the appearance of Halley's comet each time it passed by. Oh, give it a rest, Jezebel. Okay, so this is fun. Like we definitely, so maybe to get this to work, what we need to do is take the mom's headsets out of it. Because it doesn't, like, given how you're unfolding the story, it doesn't seem like we're talking about the comet, right? And then, so let's take mom out there. I love that mom's kind of obsessed and she's got her headsets on, her headset, whatever that is, headphones, headset. But let's stay with it. So when the spacecraft went out, the details were pretty amazing. I would take out pretty to be, well, I don't know. That's a voice thing. Like the first ever picture of the very core of the comet itself, but Giotto no. And then it takes this hard turn into something like, wait, what? Which I actually love in a story, right? And this is the kind of like weirdness that like poses the question of like, what kind of story is this? But then we have, oh, give it a rest, Jezebel. And it's like dad, like bringing things back into grounded reality. Oh, give it a rest, Jezebel. Dad teased mom as he smiled his sideways smile at me. Now this, as much as I love this whole thing, we're like, okay, you start very grounded in science, then you get into this very magical, mythological type of version of story, and then dad brings it back to reality. Oh, give it a rest, Jezebel. Dad teased mom as he smiled sideways at me. I think I needed a little more context here, Susanna, because you immediately, what you do here. Okay, so right now, it's just I, and the I carries us through here and is telling this story. So it kind of seems like the our narrator, is telling this story. But then give it a rest, Jezebel. So when I read this, I was like, okay, my main character's name is Jezebel, because that's who I assumed was talking. But then I'm like, okay, dad teased mom. And then, okay. So this was mom telling the story, and he smiled sideways at me. And then you bring in another character. So like 1, 2, I don't know if mom is Jezebel or narrator is Jezebel, or if Jezebel is another character. No, I mean, it's either the narrator or mom, but you bring in dad and then you bring in Susanna, and it's just like a lot right in like a few words. So I would put a little more context in here. Like have mom be like, and this would really depend on what kind of character mom is. And that's why this first line of moms will be so important. Like if it were me, and it's not, but I have to put something in here for the example, I would probably have mom be the one who's like less attached to facts. So have her say, you're far too attached to your facts, my love, something like that. And maybe, she says it was a smile. She kisses them on the cheek. And then dad continued, Susanna will get you the data as soon as it's crystal clear. Now that seems like an odd thing to say, the way I would interpret this would be that dad and mom and Susanna are like scientists, and they have reason to need this data, but it's not going to get to them until it's crystal clear. Like it just raises questions, like if it's more casual, if mom is not a scientist who's like waiting on the data, I would have dad say something like, Susanna will tell you everything she learns as soon as she learns it. But rather than get you the data. So again, I'm not sure which way your story goes. If mom is a scientist, then get you the data is great. But I would say as soon as she can. I'm gonna assume that this is your story is mom is a scientist, dad continues. Susanna will get you the data. Oh, give it a rest, Susanna. So the thing is that like this, if this is mom telling this kind of wonderful, weird story about what might be in the comet, she doesn't seem like a scientist. Not that scientists can't be, drawn in by whimsy or tell silly stories, but also the name Jezebel. I mean, it's a weighty name. Well, we'll come back to that. She doesn't seem like someone who's waiting on data, right? She seems like someone who's very curious about it, but probably not waiting on data. So there's something that's not quite lining up here. Is she just a normal mom? And again, I would love to know like where they are in the world. So you could have like, since you start with like this wonderful outer space, I wonder if you could dad tease mom and ground us here, like mom that morning in our Ohio kitchen as he smiled sideways at me. Like give us some grounding, like bring us down to earth and put us in a particular place. You might even like our Cincinnati kitchen, like bring us down into the actual city. Give us some context. You're far too attached to facts. Your facts, my love. So this doesn't quite jive with the character that you've already set up as mom telling that story. So I'm going to change this. Susanna will. It seems like it would be like tell you there. Let me move my coffee out of the way. Everything she can, and I would start it with like, Susanna will tell you everything she can. Mom had met Susanna in college during her semester abroad, but you still need to tie the ideas. Like I would have him say like, be patient. Susanna will tell you everything you can. Oh, patient. Mom had met Susanna in college during her semester abroad in Ireland. Susanna was running the experiments on the dust around Halley's Comet. They'd always called it a dirty snowball. Giotto discovered that it was, in fact, more like a snowy dirt ball with a dark, rocky core shaped a little bit like a peanut. So I think just in general, this is a great first page. I think you just need to clarify a little bit in here of introduce mom and dad and Susanna with a little more like cadence rather than all in 3-4 words, and decide, or rather you probably have already decided, you probably know, but is mom lay person who's fascinated by the comet or someone who's like waiting for data, and once you know that, once you have that front of mind, come back here and rewrite this little bit of dialogue to hint at those things. So maybe instead, give it a rest, Jezebel, dad teased mom that morning in our Ohio kitchen as he smiled sideways at me. Also, opportunity here to like, she's 7. I guess one of my notes always on a first page is, can you tell us a little bit more about these characters? Even just, I mean, I made the assumption of Ohio. It could be Quito, Ecuador, right? It could be anywhere in the world. It could be Beijing. And that's going to put a different picture in my head of who these people are. Could you have your main character, I, get a name? It doesn't always have to be first page, but like dad could be like, right, give it a rest, dad teased mom. Right, Jezebel, he said to me, and that would clarify whether it's Jezebel is the I or mom. Again, clarity above all else. I love the opening. I think it's a wonderful mix of science and this periodic, wonderful, awe-inducing thing that happens, to us as humans, that this comet passes by, combined with this hint of like, when you put something like this on a first page, you're hinting like there might be a little magic in this story. If there's no magic in this story, I wouldn't put this here. Or not even magic, but like there has to be some room for wonder, or like if mom has to be a character, or whoever, if it's the I or if it's mom, that there's someone who has a wild imagination, and that we're going to get little bits of this throughout the story. Because really that's what a first page does, is introduce us to how is this story going to be. You're telling the reader, this is the kind of journey that you're about to be on. And if it's the kind of journey that is very much based in science, but will occasionally have this like fanciful, magical, maybe spin-off of a narrative and then come back to Earth. I love that kind of story. I hope that's what this is. I would love to read it. And then just kind of anchoring down who is who in this little section here. Just a little bit of clarification. And then you bring us back to the comet. But for me, it was just a smudge in the sky. Okay. And that does really, like, my hope is that, like, maybe it's just a smudge in the sky for you, but it actually does have, they do have some ties to someone who's actually doing the research. So you get the hint that maybe there will be more to this. I mean, I'm intrigued. I would definitely keep reading, but I would hope that you could clarify a little in the middle here. All right, I hope that's helpful. Thank you to our author who sent this in. This doesn't work without you. And if this was not your page and you would like to send in your first page and get some feedback, there's a link in the show notes below. You can check that out. And of course, as always, if you are working on a novel, this is what I do. I would love to help you with your story. Let's talk. Happy writing, everybody. Cheers.